What's the weirdest thing that ever happened to you that made you think that God was real? And I'm not talking about believing in some kind of universal energy. I'm talking.
Oh, he's real. God is real. I had just gotten kicked out of my shelter that I was staying at, the homeless shelter I was staying at, because I got into a little squabble. Another story for another day. And I moved into a Nissan Altima. You guys know the story. I lived inside a Nissan Altima for 8 months and 3 weeks. And while I was in a Nissan Altima, that particular night, it was so cold. It was freezing. My Nissan Altima was missing one window. The doors did not lock. And I'm just bawling my eyes out. I'm just crying. I'm like, I'm so over this. By the way, in those 8 months and 3 weeks I was staying in the car, I had lost my faith in God, because for me, I'm like, what kind of God will allow someone who's originally, predisposed to being sick, allow them to be homeless? Like, he must not exist. So I was an atheist for a little bit there. And so I'm in the back of my car, sleeping like I always do. I'm crying all night. And I just kept saying, God, if you exist, if you are real, you will show yourself to me, period. Nothing. I hear nothing from him. I didn't hear a sound. I didn't hear a peep. I'm just crying. Like, I'm literally cursing out this God that I no longer believe in. I'm just like, you're such a bad person. How could you do this to me? If you exist, you would just show up right now. You would tell me you exist. You will show up right now. Nothing. And so then I started playing R. Kelly's Storm Is Over Now. Now, you guys know that song. The last 30 seconds of it is a very powerful, like, it's just, you feel it viscerally. I think it's written by Kirk Franklin. And I must have played it at least 300 times. That could also be the fact that I'm on a spectrum. But I was hyper fixated on that song that particular night. Storm is over now. Yeah. And I can see the sunshine somewhere beyond the clouds. I can feel heaven. Heaven is over me. Would you come and set me free? Yeah. Would you come and set me free? Yeah. That song, I had played it like 300 times. I just kept playing it. And around 7 o'clock, I normally clock into American Apparel at 10 o'clock in the morning. But around 7 o'clock, I finally fell asleep. All night, could not sleep. I finally fell asleep. And I had a vivid dream of God, whatever that looks like, God, reaching out to me and said, do you think I abandoned you? You thought you were keeping yourself safe this whole time? You by yourself, a young girl in a car that doesn't lock, that doesn't have windows. You thought that was all you? You thought that was all you? And he's chastising me, this God. Like, he's like, you thought that was all you? How could you ever doubt me, my child? How could you ever doubt me? I've always been here. I was just waiting for you to call me. I was just waiting for you to come home. So I was like, okay. I woke up and I said, if that was really you, you will get me out of this car by the end of today. I brushed my teeth like I always do inside of my car. I brushed my teeth. I got back in the car. I started, freshening up a little bit. And I opened my laptop, connected to my, my Wi-Fi on my phone. And I got an email from a company saying that, could you please come in for an interview tomorrow? And we would like to hire you. We would like to interview for a writing position. And so I was like, how do they even know I'm a writer? I work retail. And so I got this email at the time, specsandblazers@gmail.com. So I wrote them back, set up the interview. I went the next day and they were like, we're just looking for someone to push out articles for us on our website, on our blog. They're a fashion company and we'll pay you $500 per article. And you do have to get take the pictures and everything. And that's what we're looking for. And I was like, how'd you guys find me? They were like, from Tumblr. I was like, my Tumblr was just for fun. Like, I don't really post anything prolific on there, anything profound. Like, I write, but like not good enough to be hired by a company. I'm saying this all in my head, but I just kept saying to myself, okay, stay confident, remain confident. So I said $500 per article. They were like, yeah. And I said, if you can advance me my first 2 months right now, I don't know what gave me the confidence, the audacity to ask this. If you can advance me right now at this moment, we'll shake on it and I will never let you down. I'll make your company so famous. I will promote it till I can't breathe. They were like, huh? They kept looking at each other, the two ladies. They were so beautiful. They were like, huh? I was like, yeah, advance me right now. Cut the check right now. Give me $4,000 right now. I won't ask you for anything else. I will write your articles. I'm punctual. I'm tenacious. I will push it out on time every single Friday. You will not regret it. But give me 2 months right now. And they were like, I said, cut the check. And she goes to her table She writes me a $4,000 check. She hands it over. I said, this check will not bounce, right? She's like, no, it won't bounce. You're sure? She's like, yeah, I'm sure. Okay. We shook on it. I went home. I put it in my Chase account. The check did not bounce. And I went and got a studio apartment. From that day on, I no longer have roommates. I had pride in myself. At 25 years old, I no longer have roommates. And I wrote for them for about 2 years before my influencing career took off. I say all this to say, God is real. You just have to listen. If you're in a rough place in life right now and you're wondering how could God do this to you, he does not exist. He's just waiting. I'm getting emotional. He's just waiting for you to call him. He's waiting for you to come home. And so much so, I remember like rushing back to my Nissan Altima, my baby, my push to start, because I had to literally push it to start. I remember running back to my driver's side before I got in the car, and I just got on my knees by my driver's side of the car, and I just kept saying, God, I will never doubt you again. I will never doubt you again. You are so real. And I was spent the rest of my life yelling and screaming your name at the top of my lungs for the rest of my life. And that's what I've done. I've experienced being broke here and there since, but I've never experienced that kind of poverty again. And every time I meet someone now who's like, I don't believe in God, God is not real, I go, so how's that working out for you? They usually always have a very chaotic life. And I just go, why don't you just give him a call? Why don't you just call him? He's waiting for you. Just call him. He'll pick up. I promise. And yeah, that's my story of the day that how I was an atheist for only 8 months, and it was the worst 8 months of my life because our God is a jealous God. And ever since then, my faith in him has remained so strong. And it's palpable. Anyone who meets me knows that I put God first in everything that I do, and I never doubt him. I don't question him. Whatever he commands, I obey because he's the greatest. I believe in you, and I hope you always believe in yourself. Stay fabulous.
Okay, I think it's very apparent that I need to tell the full story of how I encountered Jesus, like that moment. But I've been trying to decide if how I want to do this, because I could go very in depth to it, and I kind of need to give you guys some backstory to it. But I will share just the encounter itself, because this was the moment everything changed for me. So I have 2 videos right now. I pinned them at the top of my page. It was about a year ago where I was sharing part of my fuller testimony, but this is going to be specifically about my encounter with Jesus. So prior to this, I was living in the New Age, and I had moved into an apartment with one of my younger brothers. His name is Gavin, and we were both practicing New Age together. He had been off at college while I was working. And so he was, doing mushrooms. We both smoked a lot of weed, and he got me into more of this, but it's like channeling higher ascended masters and, the 5D. And there's this woman who channels the council. I forgot her name, but I read her book. And Bashar on YouTube, I forgot his name, but he channels like Bashar or something, like supposed to be these enlightened beings that, you get into a meditative state. And a lot of the time weed was involved. But me and my brother would do this. Like, we'd get into meditative state, and then he would just start asking me questions, and I would call upon my spirit guide to then answer those questions through me. I laugh now because God has shown me the truth, right? I'm sitting there manifesting demons, and they're just having a play date, telling me stupid information that sounds good. Everything that the devil is going to use to distract you and pivot you away from Jesus is always going to sound like good, sound like some enlightened message. But really, we were going in circles. We were just going right back to the drugs. But anyway, so me and my brother were like super excited to move in together, because then we could like, in our apartment, we were like, we're going to create this temple, this amazing space where it's just gonna be so spiritual and stuff. And we were living in an apartment that had no windows. It was all brick. And so one day we had decided to like get big poster board, and we were gonna channel and ask, Lucas, my ascended master, some rules, some guidelines to follow. And then I was gonna post it. Like, sorry, I'm getting it's just a lot. Okay, so we did that, and we wrote down a bunch of rules, and we had posted them all over the walls of our apartment. So it was like, follow your intuition, trust your higher self. I can't remember a lot of them, but it had to do with like imagination and, you know, really like leaning into how you feel, which is so crazy because when I read the Bible after I got saved, our hearts are deceitful. Do not trust your feelings. Dude, I was like, oh my gosh, because it sounds good. Trust your intuition, trust your gut, trust yourself. Where did that lead me? To death, bro. Okay, anyway, thank you, Jesus. So we had that all over our walls. I also would get high and I love to create and make art. So I had a full, like a bunch of paintings. So I'm just trying to paint the picture of like what our apartment looked like. Now we have Yahweh. I have, you know, the lion. I have me with the Holy Spirit dancing. Like I love art, so I have it all above. But before that, it was just a perverted version of it. So it was all over our apartment. And I was also like big in the skating scene. I love to roller skate. And so at that time, I had broken both of my wrists, and I want to make sure I tell this correctly because it's like my brother's side of the story influenced how I met Jesus, but I didn't know it at the time. So broke both of my wrists. I'm working this front desk job at a gym, and I have two not casts but braces. And the next day I was going into surgery, and I'm just standing there, and this man walks in. And didn't say anything. I'd never seen him before. He was visiting from out of town, so he was just coming for the day. And he comes in, does his workout, and as he's leaving, he stops, starts talking to me, and he's asking me about my wrist, because I'm just standing there like, blah, blah, blah. And he asked me, like, can I pray for you? And I was kind of taken aback, like, okay, like, this is kind of weird, but you're nice and very kind, so I will just accept the prayer, you know. Everything is, you know, love and light. So, and I got the prayer, and I don't remember the prayer. I to this day, I don't really remember if he said Jesus. He probably did because I know he was a believer. But the thing that I took away from that prayer was his kindness. No one had ever asked, like, stopped genuinely, like, wanting to pray for me. And so that happened, and that was like the first little seed. And then I went in for surgery. Surgery was good. I'm recovering from surgery, and I like couldn't smoke weed because I had to take some medicine for the pain. So when I finally was able to stop the medicine, I smoked some weed. And this whole time leading up to it, like I had done mushrooms before. I had one bad trip, so I stopped doing that. But every time I smoked weed, like I never had paranoia. I never had anything. Like at that point, like I never really felt evil, even though I had been obsessed with like demons growing up and obsessed with the Ouija board and all this like stuff. I never felt it. And my brother growing up always felt it. I would like force him to watch horror movies with me, and he'd get so scared, but I'd get excited about it. Like it was something like weird. I don't know if you guys have experienced it, but so I smoked this weed, and I remember this was the first time where I was like, something is different. And I had this weird thing where I thought my spirit guide was like in my cat, and I was like looking at my cat all weird. And then I walked into my bathroom and I looked at myself in the mirror. And when I looked at myself, I did not recognize me. It was so strange. And when I looked in my eyes, I just saw pure evil. And it freaked me out because at that point, I never seen evil. And I felt it. I felt this darkness that was inside of me. And up my whole life until that moment, I never felt darkness like I had at that moment. It was so, so strange. And I actually forgot to mention this too, but a little bit before this time, like right before I'd broken my wrist, I was on and off with this guy that I had broken up with. But I remember we had smoked weed too, and we had sex, and that night I slept over at his house, and I had the worst nightmares ever. And I never had nightmares. So it was so strange. Like I had the nightmares, then a week later I break my wrist, a guy prays for me. Then after I've recovered from the surgery, I see the evil in myself after smoking. And my brother had come home with a Bible, and I walked into my apartment and there's a Bible sitting on the coffee table, and I'm like, why is there a Bible? Why do we have a Bible in our freaking living room? And so I asked my brother, and he was like, I don't know, I just started feeling like this evil darkness. I don't know why, I just felt like I needed to buy a Bible. And I didn't know this at the time. But my brother, for about a week, had come across a video on YouTube of a testimony of somebody going from the New Age to Jesus. So he had been watching these testimonies of people converting to Christianity this whole time. And he said that he didn't want to tell me because I was so in it. Like, he didn't want any backlash or anything. So, the Bible's sitting here. I'm like, what the heck? I have this experience. So I go to tell my brother about this like weird evil that I've seen in myself. And I believe it was at the end of the day. This is December of 2023. And I'm like, Gavin, I gotta tell you about this supernatural thing, da-da-da-da-da. And I tell him about the experience of me looking at myself. And he just looked at me and he said, Gracie, I don't think what we've been following, believing, practicing for our whole lives, and especially now, is the truth. I think that Jesus is the truth. And as soon as he said that, Jesus is the truth, immediately his love poured into our living room. I cannot even explain it. The scales, I physically felt my eyes. Scales fell off.